What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm back for another recap of another Canadian MMA event, a third one in a very short time. But as I told you, the year 2022 in Canadian MMA was really getting started with last Friday's Unified MMA event, Unified 43, that was taking place in Edmonton. Since then, we had another excellent event with BTC 14, and then BFL promotion from British Columbia was finally presenting their first event of the year. They were supposed to do it on February 17, if I remember, but they had plenty cancellations, plenty stuff going on, so they just pushed it back for a little less than a month, and finally on March 10th. Thursday, March 10th, we had the BFL 71 event, which was not as stacked as the unified event. I must say, when you're just looking at the lineup, the names on the lineup, one event was way more stacked than the other. But in the end, I feel like they both delivered as much, because the BFL 71 event was absolutely amazing. We had 7 fights, none of them were boring. We have plenty things to say about each of those matchups, and we're going to start right now with the main event of the evening, which was for the interim lightweight championship, at least for one of the two fighters, as Dario Sinagoga once again missed weight. And I've got to criticize him on that before I give him a lots of praise, because he did really good in that fight. And it was a really nice fight, a really good, entertaining matchup. But man, come on, Dario, you gotta make weight. And if you're not able, because it's been 2 fights now, so if you're not able to make weight, maybe, bro, just go to 70. I know that you're more of a 55 frame, but you're a very skilled fighter. Like, you're good despite everything that has been said. Because I know I've been really critical of the Powell decision, and I stand behind that. It was the worst decision I've seen in my life, basically. But I still gotta say that I fuck with Dario, the fighter. Like, it's not his fault what happened in that fight. He came, he fought against Zachary Powell, he did his best. The judges decided to give him one of the most bullshit decision ever, but the guy has no say in that. Like, he just came in and he fought, and like, I love Dario. He's a cool guy. I had him on my podcast once. I really enjoyed talking to him, and I really enjoy his fights. The Powell fight, yes, I'm still honored by that decision. It's absolute fucking trash, but it's not Dario's fault. So I know I've been really critical of that decision, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I really love Dario Sinagoga as a fighter. I really enjoy watching his fights. But bro, you have to make weight, please. It's like the only criticism I have towards you right now. You have to make weight. It's really important, because now we're in a situation where they tried to establish an interim title, because they don't really know what's going on with Achilles. Will he have another opportunity? Will he fight for BFL? So we don't really know what's happening there. So they put on the interim title to like to know what's next in the division. And yes, for sure, Dario won, so he's probably next for to fight for the title. But the guy has to make weight if you want to be able to make him compete for a title, and it's not been the case. And it's been close. I know, like 0.8 pounds. That's tough luck, man. But shit, when it's been 2 fights in a row, you gotta make weight. That being said, amazing fight, amazing performance by Dario, and by Kyran Cameron too. I gotta say, they both gave us a lot. They both showed us a lot, and I feel like we learned a lot about these two fighters, because Kyran Cameron. Um, had some good finishes. Did not have many fights that went past the first round. I think one or two fights went past the first round. He showed us that. Yes, I think he wasn't the fresher fighter in that fight at the end of it, but he was still the one who came back absolutely crazy in the fifth round and was able to win that fifth round and make that fight super competitive until the end. But like, I really feel like the deciding factor here was Dario's power. Like, first of all, Dario was the aggressor. All fight, he was the guy going forward, trying to put some heavy letter on his opponent, put some shots on Kyran. Often the guy who was initiating the grappling exchanges too, was really the aggressor in that fight. And at the moment, I was like, this could be another tricky decision, because Kyran Cameron's having a lot of success being the fighter who's backing up, who's trying to put some volume to land his jab. And when he feel like he's in perfect range with it, as he's been touching with his jab, he goes with the 1-2, with the great combinations. He's landing good kicks too. He's doing a lot of stuff very well, but he's just not landing the harder shots. Like clearly Dario is the fighter who's landing the harder shots in that fight, and like you can see it. Sometimes you see that a guy is landing harder, but the other guy is not really affected by it. So it becomes really tricky to judge who's winning that fight. But in that fight, you could really see that when Dario was able to land his best shots, yes, he dropped Kyran once, but he put him on the back foot severely at plenty times. We were like, oh shit, he's hurt. And if Dario's able to pounce, maybe he's gonna be able to finish that fight. And Kyran really showed incredible toughness to never get finished, to always keep fighting, even though he was getting battered and bloodied and even tired at the end of that fight. But was really able to come back strong in the fifth round, land some damage, man. Even Dario had some visible damage. Both guys were bleeding. Both guys gave it their all. But in the end, it's really Dario's power that gave him the upper end of that fight. I feel like he was able to win the first round. I gave the second round to Kyran. Then 3 and 4, I think, were Dario's round. I don't quite remember because, like I gotta tell you, I was working last night. I'm able to watch the events at work, no problem. But after the events, I gotta work. So, like, I watched the event, then I worked my whole shift, and then I'm back home, and I haven't slept, I haven't looked back at it. So I don't quite remember if it's in the third or the fourth that Dario dropped Kyran, but he definitely dropped him and won these 2 rounds convincingly, in my opinion. And then Kyran, like we said, was able to come back in the fifth round and really make it a close fight. Because for a while at the beginning, I was feeling like, oh, this could be a tricky decision. But then when the third and the fourth came about, I was really like saying this might end up being a 49-46 for Dario. And I feel like the fight is way closer than that scorecard. So Kyran was able to come back in the fifth, have an amazing round, win the round, and really make it a 48-47 fight, a 3 rounds to 2 fight, which it was absolutely. It was a good matchup, great exchanges, absolute toughness and grit from both fighters. Dario comes out as the winner. Unfortunately, he's not the interim champion because he did not make weight. But like I said, that's the only criticism I have of that fight. It was an amazing performance for both fighters, but a better one for Dario. Really was able to put power on his opponent, and I feel stay ahead. It got closer towards the end because Kyran had that good fifth round, but was able to get ahead in the first round and stay ahead of Kyran for pretty much the whole fight. So really good performance for Dario Sinagoga, and a performance that like kind of makes up for the last fight because yes, he won against Powell, but I don't think he's pretty happy about that performance. Like, there's no way that fight went the way that Dario wanted that fight to go. So to see him come back and really being the guy who dictates where the fight goes, whether it's on the feet or on the ground, being the guy that lands the heavier punch, does the more damage on his opponent, it's got to be a really satisfying performance for him. So shout out to Dario, shout out to Kyran too. Amazing fight. And that leads us to the co-main event of the evening, a 178-pound catch weight contest between Saeid Mirzaei and Bobby Poulter. And that wasn't a very competitive fight. Saeid was first. That guy is gigantic. I really felt like it was a middleweight fighting a welterweight, or at least a really big welterweight fighting a guy who could potentially be a 55 or even maybe more a 65er in Canada, since there's that weight class in almost every promotion now, except for the UFC, which is bullshit. But that's another subject. But like, I feel like Bobby Poulter on the smaller side of the division for sure, and Saeid is absolutely monstrous. He's an amazing athlete, and man, when he secured that takedown, took the back, and like, I really liked the finish, to be quite honest, because he had the choke on the jaw. Bobby was like really patient and did not want to tap from that choke, but when you're getting choke on your jaw, sometimes it's just too much, so you either gotta tap or you either gotta change the position, and when the hands are really locked in behind the head and everything's like super secured, like basically the only thing you can do is to get your chin out of the choke, which gives your neck. And Bobby had no choice, had to give up his neck at a point, and props to him, did not tap from the choke, absolutely went out on his shield. But really dominant performance from Saeid Mirzaei, who I had never seen fight before. I must say it. I heard about him. I heard about like the hype, and I know that this guy's a character and he's not doing things like everybody else. But I had never had the chance to see him fight, and man, the guy super athletic, super explosive. He's got good technique, visibly in all aspects of martial arts, and really good grappler too. You know, I like me some grapplers, so really hyped for what's next. I hope he can stay active. I hope we'll see him back in the BFL cage, and same thing for Bobby, man. I feel like yes, that's a tough loss for sure. You're undefeated, and then you get choked out in the first round. You're not going to be happy about that, but man, it's like there was a size difference that was non-negligible in that fight. So I feel like I know Bobby won't make excuses. Like I know that the guy's not like that. He's a real fighter, but I'm here making excuses for Bobby. I feel like the two guys should not be in the same weight class. But what you gonna do? They were in the same weight class. They agreed to the catch weight fight, and Saeid was absolutely dominant in that one. And I can't wait to see what's next for him. Then Mike McAloon is one of my guys, man. I gotta tell you, like, if we're going to establish right now a list of Canadian fighters that I won't say not well known because he's been around and like people who are looking at the regional scene, they know who Mike McAloon is, but like he's not Shane Gamble, like he's not one of the big headliners of the events like in Canada, but he's a really reliable guy that you can have on any event that you know that he's gonna put on a performance, and that was an absolute grappling clinic, and I love his style, and I know that like not I know what I feel that it's maybe because we've got some similar styles. Like I do jujitsu too. And I feel like me and Mike McAloon were kind of doing the same thing. Like very slick on our backs, but still very heavy on top. Good scrambler, goes for the darts like heavily, which is something I do. I'm a dart spammer for sure. It's my best move, it's my favorite move. So man, I kind of relate when I look at Mike McAloon fight. The only thing he does better than me is takedowns. I am an absolute shit wrestler. I can strangely enough, I wrestle good on the mat, but standing up, I'm a bad takedown artist. Like I'm just straight up a bad takedown artist, and that's why I usually pull guard in my fights. But that being said, Mike McAloon is a good grappler. He put an absolute clinic on prospect Jonnie Broad, who like I felt like this was gonna be a tough matchup for Jonnie, who is super talented, but he's sorry about that. He's kind of developing into a really slow starter. Like all his fights have really not went his way in the first round, and he's able to make it more competitive in the second round and then really take over in the third round. And he was able to finish his previous opponents in the third round. But I feel like the fact that he's a slow starter, Mike McAloon just took advantage of it and really like established his game and really made it known that that was the way that the fight was gonna go. Like he made it clear. He really drowned Jonnie Broad, and I feel like he really shut his chances down for a comeback quite quickly with really dominant takedowns and absolutely dominant top control. Good stuff. And looking for submissions, landing some good ground and pound. And Jonnie Broad, like I'm not gonna lie, he did some good stuff to try to get up, to try to create some scrambles on the ground. But Mike McAloon is an amazing scrambler, was always able to float on top to retain the top position. And that was an absolute grappling clinic. Mike McAloon, like I said, very underrated fighter, one of my favorite fighters in Canada. And man, I can't wait to see what's next for him. I want to see him in another grappling matchup, man. This guy is absolutely crazy, and I can't get enough of him. Then, wow, Johnny Nguyen, Gagan, Gill, that was an absolute classic. One like I was speaking with my buddy Max Carabin, and like he was telling me that he was basically preferring that fight to Bular Gavrilovich that we seen on Unified, which was another absolute classic. Two very different fights, as Nguyen and Gill are way more technical, and it was really a technical matchup, but it went absolutely crazy. Nguyen was able to have a really good. I feel like I'm gonna start like this. Gill started the first round kind of strong, landed some good punches there, but Nguyen was able to find his jab, and once he found his jab, was absolutely amazing with his jabs, with his leg kicks, was landing some really good uppercuts in that fight, either to the head and to the body, some real good body work by John Nguyen, and was really able to get in front of Gagan Gill in the very first round. And in the corner, I was really wondering, man, is the long inactivity period for Gill like causing him trouble here? Because he looked like he was quite tired, but man, it did not look like it when the second round started, because Gill went absolutely nuts at the very beginning of the round, was able to land some really power, and he was really the more powerful striker in here. So every time he was landing, Nguyen couldn't just be there and trying to counter. He had to acknowledge the strikes from Gill, because he was gonna get knocked out if he kept eating those shots clean. And like, he did not try to eat those shots clean. He did really good defensive work, but Gill was able to put heavy pressure on him. Then it was an absolute crazy round, like by far best round of the year so far. The second round between Nguyen and Gill, they were landing shots back and forth, some elbows back and forth. Nguyen even landed a spinning elbow. Gill never budged, man. It was absolutely crazy. And then in the third round, it was still a good round, but you could really see that the same momentum as the first round was kind of establishing itself, like with Nguyen being able to pump the jab and to keep moving and to really keep Gill at bay. And yes, Gill was able to get in and land some powerful shots, and it was still an amazing back and forth fight all the way through. But John Nguyen was really the craftier striker, who was able to, yes, eat the bigger shots, but land some amazing offense of his own, some elbows, amazing elbows, beautiful spinning elbows. That was an amazing fight. That is going to be in the discussion for fight of the year for sure. I'm still torn between that one and Bular Gavrilovic. I absolutely love the Strania fight last Friday. So I'm torn between these two, but you bet that I'm going to watch these fights again before the end of the year. That was two absolutely banging fights. And props to Nguyen and to Gagan Gill, who just come back from quite a long period in inactivity and immediately goes into an absolutely brutal, reckless, and tiring war. So shout out to him. Amazing stuff. And then Indroop Virk was looking to get back into the win column after getting upset by Austin Russell. Got caught in a really slick ninja choke from like basically a front naked choke on a takedown attempt. And man, he was not going to have none of it at the beginning of the fight. He immediately took Noah Crosswell down, took his back, sunk in the rear naked choke. The thing absolutely lasted for a little more than 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Dominant victory for Virk. He's back into the winning column. As for Noah Crosswell, man, I'm gonna give him props because he showed up that time, man. Congrats for showing up, Noah. But I think that's not the performance he was open for, of course. Then the two first fight of the evening, I must say, were really good. Manny El Efnawi. I gotta practice that. Manny, man. I'm gonna call that guy Manny. I fuck with Manny. Really good fighter. Against Amin Almelik, another really good fighter. In a fight that was really looking like a striking matchup in the beginning. And then Manny quickly realized that, yes, Amin was a really good striker, and that if he was able to clinch him up against the cage and to really make it a dirtier, more grappling heavy fight, that he was able to get at his gas tank easier and take over the fight slowly that way. And they had really two very competitive rounds in the two first rounds. I feel like I edged it towards Manny in the first one. I gave the second one to Amin, as he was really able to get into less grappling exchanges and land the better shots. But in the third round, man, he probably know that it was 1-1, so he really went all in with the clinching, the grappling attacks against the cage. Was able to secure some takedowns too, and really put a stamp into that third round to get the victory. Amazing pro debut for both, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing both of these fighters fight again. Some bantamweights too, man. That division is starting to get crazy with all that talent coming in. But really good matchup. I would really like to see. Basically, I'm gonna do some matchmaking right now. I like to see Manny fight the winner of the first fight of the evening, and see Amin fight the loser of the first fight of the evening. Because in the first fight of the evening, we had a very good matchup. Another matchup that's definitely gonna be in my list of the best fights of the year, between Damon Marlow, Matt Lepper, and man, Damon Marlow really showed some good grit and some good toughness in that fight, because it was super back and forth. I feel like Damon was able to edge out the first round. The first round was cool. Damon started off well on his feet, was able to land a good takedown. Then I think found himself into some trouble, because Matt Lepper was super aggressive with the sub attempts on his feet, on his back. Sorry, and was really able to win a good portion of the round, to be honest. But Damon was really able to start landing some good ground and pound at the end of the round, and he had a very strong ending to the round, very good last minute. So I feel like that, with the strong beginning of the round, edged the round in his favor. Then the second round was kind of more of the same. Really, some wild scrambles, some good grappling, even some good stand up. Matt Lepper at the upper end in the stand up in that fight, and was able to still be dominant on the ground, get some top control even. And it was really feeling like the momentum of the fight was going into his direction. But in the third round, Damon was able to come back, secure a good takedown, and really put it on Matt Lepper, who his gas tank was starting to fail on him, which is something that's happens to guys in their first pro fights, unfortunately. And that's what happened. Really got TKO'd in the purest sense of the way, because Marlow had a good position, was landing some brutal shots from top position, but like nothing to put his lights out. Or he really had him in a position where Matt Lepper was not able to intelligently defend himself. So he got the TKO win. Super good performance in a pro debut for both of these guys. But Damon Marlow really at the upper end, was a guy that had the deeper gas tank and was able to pull through with his grit and his toughness to win that fight. So like I said, I would really love to see Damon Marlow and Manny fight, and I'd really love to see Matt Lepper and Amin fight, because Matt Lepper and Amin, that would be an amazing style matchup. Like the pure kickboxer, Muay Thai striking type of fighter against, yes, Matt Lepper knows how to strike as much as Amin knows how to grapple and do jiu-jitsu. But Matt Lepper really looks like the exciting submission heavy fighter, which wants to take it to the ground and wants to look for the submission, whether he's on top or on his back. So I really love that style. And man, that was a good fight. Really good fight to start the evening off. I know there were some amateur action too on the prelims. Man, unfortunately, like with all the fights that I have to watch, and with all the things that I have to analyze regarding the UFC events and all the Canadian action coming up, like I don't really have time to watch the amateur fights, unfortunately. And of course, when these guys are gonna make their pro debuts eventually, I'll have to circle back and watch these fights before their pro debut. So I'm gonna end up watching these fights one day or another. But I did not tune in live for the amateur action, nor even am I covering the amateur action on MMA Talk, because that would just be too much for me. And the guys at MMA Empire, they really do an amazing job covering all these events, posting all the results, and really being on top of things, even with the amateur action. So I'd suggest you give them a follow, either on Facebook or Instagram. Their Instagram is really good, so follow the guys at MMA Empire if you want to know what took place in these amateur fights. I did not watch, I don't know, but overall, amazing event for BFL. Real good way to start the year off. And honestly, I feel like it was one of their best events in terms of matchmakings. Like some really good matchups. They were tightly contested. The matchup made sense. There were no like Jalen Martin against Chester Post, or like some matchups that guys got similar records, but you really know like which way it's gonna go. It wasn't the case here. It really was not the case. And the fights were competitive, were exciting all the way through. It was an amazing night of action. And man, props to BFL for that. Real good stuff. And I can't wait to see what's next for BFL 72 later on this year. So we'll stay in touch. Thanks for watching, guys. As usual, give it a like if you like. Subscribe to MMA Talk for more of that shit. And you know the drill, man. See you next